Good morning, folks. Thank you as ever for tuning into the News of Ben. Now, last week I did something which, if it had been predicted a few years ago, I would have thought it preposterous. I launched a new political party, Advance UK. And I've launched it not because I want to participate as leader of a political party in British party politics. I've launched it because, sadly, there isn't a single political party that I can identify in British politics that genuinely stands for the nation state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, stands for freedom of speech, stands for our democracy, and stands for equality before the law. You would have thought these four basic principles so straightforward and so commonsensically, self-evidently the right thing to believe in and to strive for, that every political party would have it at the heart of their constitutional aims. But there isn't a single one, certainly, that is actually practically delivering on that message. They may say they believe in it, but they're doing opposite things. Even Reform UK, and particularly Reform UK, which carries the hopes and aspirations of the British people, is actually simply turning into another form of the uniparty. So on Monday, 30th June, Advance UK was launched. And in less than a week, we've taken on thousands of members, hundreds of supporters beyond our members, donors beyond supporters and members, and we've raised in excess of £100,000. It's a remarkable launch for a new party. People had said to me that we wouldn't get traction, but this is traction in spades. It absolutely confirms in my mind that what I believed was right. The British people are truly crying out for a party that will unashamedly and capably represent British interests and restore our United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And even though we've had a fantastic start, as many of you will know, I've set a target of 30,000 members before we apply to the Electoral Commission for registration as a political party. So to those of you who've already joined, I say, please go out and urge your friends and family also to join. And to those of you who haven't joined, please join up as soon as possible and similarly pass on the message. The cost of joining is only £10 per head per annum until we meet that magic 30,000 figure, at which point, as I say, we will apply to the Electoral Commission, because at that point I'll know that I have the support of the British people and the potential for a campaigning army across the country. But also at that point, in order to absolutely evidence my commitment to Advance UK and to you, our members, and the people of our country, I will donate £100,000 to the party. I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you. I will put my own money where my mouth is. As far as I know, that is unique in British politics. Now, for the vast majority of time in politics, the key issue is the economy. The economy, the economy, the economy. It's vital that we do economically well, because unless we prosper economically, we will all be worse off. It's obvious. But right now in British politics, actually the critical issues that we're facing are constitutional, culture, and people. Our constitution, our culture, and our people are under such attack that we will literally be set aside as a nation unless we fight to protect and preserve that which we are, that which is the United Kingdom. And there can be no better evidence of the threats faced by the country than the mass legal migration that's taken place over the last 30 years, particularly in the last 5 years, and the increasing abuse of our borders through illegal migration. When you have the rate of demographic change that's taking place in the United Kingdom, the people of the United Kingdom literally will cease to exist as they used to. We will no longer be the people that we were. And if we don't have borders, as it seems to be the case, then we literally cease to exist as a defined entity. Our integrity as a country ceases to exist. Immigration is the salient policy issue of modern British political times. And it's remarkable, therefore, that none of us have heard any integrated, coherent, policy on immigration and illegal immigration from any of the parties. Yes, they have a few policies that they chuck out, but we haven't heard an overarching approach to how they would deal with this incredibly critical issue. So, less than a week into the life of Advance UK, I want to set out our party's overarching approach to both mass legal migration and illegal migration. What would we do if we were to enter government? Well, the first two things we would do would be to ban the granting of indefinite leave to remain and ban the granting of British citizenship. There would have to be a moratorium on both these things until we've got a grip of the problems which have beset us. We must buy the government of the day time to deal with migration and illegal migration, and we buy that time by preventing the damage from getting any worse, by having a moratorium on the granting of indefinite leave to remain and a moratorium on the granting of British citizenship. That way we protect the fabric of our country while we deal with the issue. Next, we would repeal the Human Rights Act and we would suspend our memberships of the European Convention of Human Rights and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. It's vital that we remove from the body of domestic law the influence of these international institutions and the huge damage that they've done to our ability to actually do what's right for the country. This is a really good example of where the supranational order has actually grievously damaged nation states. So the Human Rights Act, which brought the European Convention of Human Rights into the body of British law, that must be repealed, and we must suspend our membership of the ECHR, and we must also suspend our membership of the UNHCR. It's vital that we take power back into the UK again to deal with the issue. Having bought ourselves time to deal with the problem by imposing a moratorium on granting indefinite leave to remain and the granting of British citizenship, and having taken back the power we need in order to deal with the problem, we could then set about actually dealing with the problem. And as far as illegal migration is concerned, the only way to deal with it, as many of you would have heard me say repeatedly over many years, the only real way to deal with it is to tackle it at the point of those people seeking to enter our country. And in the case of dinghies, that means having a dedicated force that patrols the edges of our territorial water, enabled obviously by technology, drones, sensors, all that kind of thing, but have a dedicated force that can identify the dinghies as they're coming towards British territorial waters, intercept them, and make sure that they don't cross into our water. And people may say, well, what about the lives of those who are on the dinghy? They may die in the channel if you try and physically interrupt their passage. And to them, I say this: Belgium already does this. It already has a dedicated force. It patrols its own waters with exactly the kind of approach that I've talked about, and it sends back to its own shores people who've launched dinghies and illegally seeking to enter the United Kingdom from Belgium. Belgium has actually done its bit, and it's reduced the launches by 92% over 5 or 6 years by that physical approach. If the Belgians can do it, we can do it in the United Kingdom. But more importantly, unless and until the would-be illegal migrants understand that they will not be allowed into our territorial waters, they will keep coming. The only way to stop it is for them to understand that they won't be allowed in. That is critical. We must reacquaint ourselves with the quaint old notion of border enforcement. Border force needs to learn appropriate force used at the border. It's vital. That's number one. Number two, if people do get into the country, as they have done, and some say 1.2 million people have entered the country and are in the country at the moment illegally, then they must be detained and they must be kept in secure facilities until they are deported. No one who's entered this country illegally should be allowed to stay here. They came from France. They didn't come as genuine refugees. They came because they wanted to come to the United Kingdom mostly for economic benefit. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But anyone in this country who's here illegally must be detained and deported. And if we're seeking to deport them to countries which won't take them back and with which we don't have a deportation arrangement, then those countries must cease to get British aid. If we are giving them aid, that aid must be suspended. If we're trading with those countries, we need to impose tariffs on them. And if those two things don't bring about the change that's needed, then we need to find another way to compel the country in question to do that which is right and take back their people. We need to be much more muscular in our approach with dealing with illegal migration. And of course, it's obvious, isn't it, that we should not be giving people who've entered our country benefits, putting them in hotels, giving them all the economic incentive to come here. They have to be treated in the way that they entered the country illegally. That, ladies and gentlemen, would stop the flow, dramatically stop the flow of illegal migration into the United Kingdom. And then dealing with legal migration. Well, the arguments that they make for legal migration is that we need migrants in the country because Brits don't work. Actually, it's the other way around. Brits aren't working because we've got too many migrants coming into the country, too many unskilled people coming into the country, undermining wages in this country. And we've made the problem worse by having a very generous benefit system and a very high taxation regime for small, medium-sized businesses and the working class. So to wean ourselves off the addiction of cheap imported labour, what we must do is the following. We must cut benefits so that it's much less attractive to the British, would-be British worker to be on benefits. We must cut taxes on small, medium-sized businesses and the working class so that it's much more attractive to work. And by reducing benefits and reducing taxes on SMEs and those on lower wages, we will incentivize people to cease taking benefits and go back into the workforce. That would, by the way, would be hugely economically beneficial to the country because instead of the government paying out benefits, it would now get tax receipts. And these people, having come back into the workforce, would obviate the need for people being imported from abroad. Number one. Number two, to the extent that we need skilled migration, I mean really skilled, physicists, highly educated individuals who are going to contribute to the British economy, to the extent that we need people like that, there has to be a minimum bar of at least, I would say, £80,000 per annum salary, so that we're not taking anyone into this country who is not already part of the top 5% odd earners in the country. There has to be a positive obligation as well on employers to employ British first. They have to do that. There has to be a positive presumption in favour of employing British people first. And if they must go abroad and to go abroad to employ people, they must justify why they're doing it. And having employed the person from abroad, they should be subject to greater taxation. There must be a disincentive to take foreigners into the United Kingdom. We need to give the British working and middle classes the opportunity for the job ahead of someone coming to the country. There's perfectly commonsensical and sensible approach to deal with the issue. And then lastly, what we've got to do is give people, and those people who are here on indefinite leave to remain, give people an incentive to leave the country. We should be consensually encouraging people to go back to their home countries. Sweden does it. They have a repatriation program and they provide incentives along it. And if we did all of this, if we basically empowered the British worker, made it disadvantageous to be on benefits, made it difficult for people to come to this country, made it more challenging for them to come to this country, more expensive for them to come to this country, and we put minimum hurdles in place, of course, mass migration would just stop. It would stop of its own volition, and we would recharge the British economy. That's the beauty of this. All those naysayers who say the Brits won't work would be proven wrong. And one last thing I should just say. to the extent that people do come to this country to work or come here for education, they should come alone. They should come on their work visas, and they should not bring their dependents with them. There's no need to come with your family. Yes, I'm sure it would be much more comfortable to come with your family, but you're presumably here for work. So do the work. If you're here for education, do the education, and then go back to your home country. Enrich your own home country. Do for your home country that which we want British citizens to do for our country. It's a perfectly reasonable proposition. Collectively, the overarching approach that I think I've just outlined for dealing with illegal migration and mass legal migration would work brilliantly. It would settle our constitutional and cultural fabric. It would settle British society, and it would make us economically much, much stronger. Why are none of the other parties putting out these sensible policies, this overarching approach? It's so obvious, isn't it? Why aren't they doing it? Well, if you vote for Advance UK in the forthcoming election, you will get these policies. And I wanted this one out there first because it is the salient issue of the British political landscape today. Thank you very much, folks, for tuning into the News at Ben.